Hello and welcome to Agarthism Explained. In this video, I will be explaining and going over the entire current history of Agartha. This might be a long one, so strap in. Get ready to dive into a story that has been in the making for 7 years and enjoy. In the beginning, there was only chaos, an infinite void filled with nothing but the gray sun, which was all that was left from the Great Collision. The Great Collision was when the two sides of chaos collided, the ether and the dark ether. This resulted in the creation of Agartha, which was orbited by the gray sun. Because of the sun, the first life in Agartha was created on Agartha Day, which is celebrated in Agartha on June 21st. The infinite cell split 3 days later, and would eventually evolve into the eternal beings and future king and queen of Agartha, Zero and Cyprus, around 100,000 BC. Now evolved into early humans, they meet in present-day Limassol, Cyprus. With their unification came their daughter Chaos and their son Order. Chaos and Order are spiritual beings existing outside of Agartha. Their sole purpose is to endlessly create and destroy. Chaos replicated the evolutionary split in every dimension she found, creating life in most dimensions. Chaos created two new deities from her parents' shadow. Her mother's shadow became the doctor who resided in the ether, while her father's shadow became the shadowman who resided in the dark ether. The doctor, intending to keep order, creates the keepers, while the shadowman, wanting to corrupt Agartha and spread the darkness, creates the apothecons. The keepers, knowing the apothecons were going to invade the ether, sent their best warriors to live within and protect the gray sun. Those keepers eventually evolve into the deities, known as the Agarthan frogs, protectors of balance. Leading up to the First Great War, the gods created by Zero and Cyprus established kingdoms across Earth. After wanting self-determination from Zero and Cyprus, they backstabbed the king and queen. Years later, many of these deities were killed by the Romans and recreated in their image. Because of this, Zero turned into his demon, Fear, and went on a killing spree of the entire population of Agartha, Zeus being the last god left. Fought hard against Fear at the top of Mount Olympus. Fear beats him to death, but not until Zeus sends a message to Chaos asking for her revenge. During this Sabian genocide, he soon found himself in the Levant, where he met his new enemy, Jesus Christ. Fear, still being in control of Zero's body, was the one who killed Jesus after his arrest and subsequent crucifixion. Fear's control lasted hundreds of years, until the collapse of the Roman Empire and the spread of Christianity. In the late 13th century, the First Great War began when the apothecons, led by the Shadowman, invaded Agartha. Zero, wanting to defend his home, creates the infinite dagger and gets support from gods like Athena, Ra, and Loki. During the war, the Shadowman manipulated Zero into staring at his reflection inside of the fire. This caused Fear to release from his soul and made him into a separate deity. Fear chose the side of the apothecons, and after a fight with Ra and Zero, his lower jaw was burned off. Fear would wear a mask ever since, as well as carry the infinite dagger which he stole from Zero. With her support for the apothecons, Chaos opened a tear in the void which caused life from other dimensions to flood in. The war ended in the defeat of the apothecons, after receiving help from a mysterious group called Primus. 700 years after the war, on June 21st, 2016, Fear invades Agartha, beginning the Second Great War. He starts his invasion in America to train his armies and familiarize them to the new dimension. Zero, wanting to meet the invasion head-on, travels to America. He lands in Baltimore, Maryland, where he witnessed a small demonic incursion. He also finds out his longtime best friend, Rachel Amber, was kidnapped by the demons. Zero raises an army and begins an invasion of Hell first, called the Hellish Crusade. The war ended rather quickly, after Lucifer agreed to give up Rachel and end his support for Fear. When Zero returned to Agartha, he and his army begins their campaign to reconquer America. Over the next 50 years, he explored the entire country and confronted various urban legends and monsters left over from the invasion. Each year he would spend in a new state until 2066, when Fear decided to invade heaven and hell. In heaven, Zero meets Fear's brother, Hope, as well as the Emerald Angels, and in hell he meets the 7 deadly sins. After a personal disagreement, Zero and Lucifer battle, resulting in Lucifer's death, and up until 2068, heaven and hell slowly was taken over by Zero. With nowhere left to go, Fear decided to make a final stand against Zero at the landing of Cyprus in Limassol. The two meet on June 18, 2068, and begin their fight, which lasts until the 21st, ending with Zero decapitating Fear, saving humanity. However, Fear also rips Zero's heart out, but before he could die, Chaos intervenes after receiving the message from Zeus thousands of years ago, and restarts time to the beginning of the war. She also resurrects every dead god, most of them hating Zero even more than they did before. The Third Great War, also known as the Chaos War, begins with her end goal being corrupting the Grey Sun and causing it to go into supernova, which would destroy Agartha. After another 50 years of war, Zero is forced to kill every god in Agartha, including the only one by accident, Athena. Just before Chaos could corrupt the sun, Zero steps in and, after a long, intense battle, kills her. Zero is infused with her power to create anything in his image. Zero decides to use her power to bring back the gods and create Agartha City, a city that expanded across the entire island of Cyprus. Every mortal and every god got to live free in a utopia with new freedom and another chance at life. Due to the lack of balance because of no chaos, the brother of Chaos, Order, became rogue and started to corrupt Agartha City. After 2 years of conflict in 2070, Order is killed by Zero, bringing full balance to the realm. This period was known as the Agarthan Rebirth. This era would end after a zombie virus spread throughout the universe, especially in Agartha. This was the beginning of the Agartha-ellipse. Zero went on a mission to save the members of the future Alpha Sigma in a prophecy told to Zero by Athena. These members were fated to become gods after a great liberation, and that they resided in dimension 65-1. Zero, believing that they were the answer to the Agartha-ellipse, saved them one by one and brought them to Agartha. Then from there they formed Alpha Sigma and liberated the world from the undead. After its liberation, the Agarthans began protesting for their independence. Zero, not seeing the point in fighting these protesters, gave them their independence. Zero and Cyprus now only became representatives and symbolic figures of Agartha, rather than having any control of the government. Alpha Sigma spread throughout the new Agartha, helping the locals with their government and the remaining wandering hordes of the undead. A new era began called the Agarthago as a result of all living life forms becoming intelligent. Zero caused this but sees his mistakes. After conflicts between the animals quickly spread, most members of Alpha Sigma were forced to escape through the portal of the observatory. The last member that attempted to escape was Alpha Sigma Rho. Before she could go through, a pack of vultures killed her, putting Zero through a change in his mentality. After allying with the apes and other species, the Sapien Coalition forced its enemies to surrender, ending the Agarthago, before Agartha was plunged yet into another war. The son of Zero and Alpha Sigma Gamma, named Alexander, gathered another 24 members for a second generation of Alpha Sigma. He met his father's ex, Alpha Sigma Oscar, and together they had a daughter named Penelope. Alpha Sigma Oscar was the first one to witness the new invasion of Agartha by dark ether forces. She quickly became a messenger to Zero, who forged an army and defended off the attack. It was in this war where Zero's morals were pushed to his limit, as he showed no mercy to these humans who he saw as inferior. The war was won, but a part of Zero was lost. After this war came the Agarthism, where Agartha was in an unstable position. The members of Alpha Sigma returned to find their new home in ruins. One place that was in good condition was Hong Kong. Zero was suspicious of this, and after Cyprus did some reconnaissance, she found out that a few of the dark ether forces stayed there and created the despotic group of Hong Kong. This group was ruthless against its people, and seeing this as a consecutive attack, Cyprus led an invasion of Hong Kong in 2083. The first wave of the attack went extremely poorly, and saw the death of the third member of Alpha Sigma named Beta. His body was recovered and sent to Agartha City, where a funeral took place. Another attack was led against Hong Kong, which they objectively won. However, many of the Alpha Sigma members were killed. The group would continue to split as they each held grudges against each other. After a threat made by Alpha Sigma Gamma, Zero divorced her. After this civil war within Alpha Sigma came the Agarthian. This era saw the most peace within Agartha since the Agarthan rebirth after the Third Great War. At the start of the Agarthian, Zero and the Greek primordial Phanes resurrected all Alpha Sigma members and other fallen deities. They all lived their own lives away from Agarthan politics and war. Fear is another being that was resurrected by accident. He roams this new Agartha seemingly as a ghost to mankind. No one can see him until he goes to his forest in America. Here, he finds a lost child who can see him. Fear later finds out that this boy, named Matthew, is a son of a man Fear killed a long time ago. The boy is in an eternal purgatory to wander around Fear's forest, destined to find his father. For the first time, Fear understands the boy's pain and helps him find a way to leave purgatory. Soon, Fear sees himself as his guardian, while the boy thinks he is the father he was destined to find. Fear, unlike himself, becomes a mentor and cares for him and begins to change because of it. He also meets Alpha Sigma Athens, the sister of Alpha Sigma Gamma, and the two fall in love, further changing Fear. Fear decides he isn't capable of being a good enough father, and travels to Hell to face his past head-on, while telling Matthew to go to Agartha City to find him. Matthew travels there and meets Zero, who he believes is Fear due to their identical look. It is there, at that moment, Zero realizes that Fear is alive and has changed. In Hell, Fear is captured and tortured. He escapes and begins a killing spree amongst the demons. Back in Agartha, a third generation of Alpha Sigma was formed when Penelope, daughter of Alexander and Alpha Sigma Oscar, found another 24 members in Dimension 65-1, though Agartha stayed peaceful at this time. Another war was raging in Dimension 24-1 in Farron. The Greek gods, after being forced to escape their home, attempted to colonize this new world. Zero and Cyprus, along with Alpha Sigma, coincidentally found their way there. They supported the gods, and after a swift guerrilla war, they made peace with locals that gave the Greeks an okay to colonize Farron. Cyprus stayed there, but Zero, after finding out about Alpha Sigma Athens and Thessaloniki's abduction by Lucifer, he travels to Hell. He finds that Hell is embodied with civil war between Lucifer's loyalists, his daughter Morning Star, and the mercenaries led by Dark Angel. He meets Morning Star, who expresses her concerns of overthrowing her father and becoming queen. Her resemblance to Alpha Sigma Oscar persuades him to help her. After making a deal with Dark Angel, he helps Zero find Alpha Sigma Athens, Thessaloniki, Rachel Amber, the Seven Sins, and the Emerald Angels. After being unable to make peace with them, Zero, Morning Star, Dark Angel, Rachel Amber, the Seven Sins, the Emerald Angels, and the first generation of Alpha Sigma go to Fear's forest and hell to fight the final battle against Lucifer's legions of hundreds of thousands of demons. Before the fight ensues, Fear finds Zero, being the first the two seen each other since the Third Great War, and joins his army. They have trouble at the start, however, on Fear's bridge. Fear gives Zero his consent to kill him to absorb his power with the infinite dagger. Zero accepts and kills him, absorbing Fear's soul, and afterwards wins the battle. Cypress witnesses this death and, mistaking Fear for Zero, escapes to Dimension 24-1. After this, Alpha Sigma and the rest return to Agartha now as gods, fulfilling their destiny. Zero stays in hell for a bit longer to reminisce, and to retrieve Fear's mask and the infinite dagger, but find them missing because of Fear's curse that inflicts Zero after his death. Zero returns to Agartha and begins a crusade against the religion and believers of Chaosticism. Morning Star, now Queen of Hell, helps Zero with the curse by creating a device used from the mist of the Grey Sun that acts as medicine. One day after consuming this medicine, he falls into a 65-year coma. During this time, the economy of Agartha has crashed and Agarthan forces have lost the war. Zero also has a vision in his dreams of being resurrected by the Agarthan frogs. He wakes up on June 24th, 3 days after being visited by Elizabeth Comstock to see all of this, and decided it was time for a change, beginning the Agarthian. Zero also changes his name to feel more like a mortal, and to cover his past, his new name is Matteo Narvazellos. On one rainy night, Matteo answers the door to a young man wearing Fear's mask. Confused, Matteo asks who he is. The cloaked figure responds by saying, "You killed my father." Matteo explains to him that he must forgive the dead to forget the past. Matteo then asks him again for his name, when the man responds by saying, "Matthew."
If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you for watching. This has been Agarthism Explained. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.